Hi everyone, I'm Rachel, and this is my mini research project presented on the view of abortions in ancient Greece and Rome. When I originally started this project, I knew that I wanted to dive into the feminism aspect of the ancient world. However, this original idea was difficult, and it was harder to find in books than I originally thought. So I chose a more clear, precise aspect of feminism: abortion. With Roe v. Wade overturned last June, abortion rights have been talked about more than ever. So, why not take it back to the building blocks of humanity, ancient Greece and Rome? Some challenges of my research that I encountered was simply finding a proper research question final thesis. My first few days of research were devoted to feminism, so I had to redo most of my research. I had trouble narrowing down my research into a smaller subject, and most of my research appeared more opinion-based at a first glance. But that's due to me looking over the view of abortion, which shifted drastically in ancient Rome and Greece. Another struggle I had was finding primary sources. The primary sources I didn't use failed to show the preconceptions and views of abortions, which was frustrating because I felt as though I was wasting time. The aspect of technology was difficult, mostly because I simply wasn't used to the Chicago research style. Most of my research for projects in the past had never followed a style, and was simply thrown into a random old Google Doc. Something else I struggled with was making an actual footnote in Google Docs, instead of just making my own and shrinking down numbers. The biggest theme I took away from this project is how much of the work is simply done by technology for you. When I had first heard we had to add footnotes, I was really worried about getting the proper order of the footnote. But it turns out that the program we used did most of the work for us. All we had to do was insert the necessary information that the source provided and could copy and paste it into the footnote. The program even took our notes at the end and completely did our bibliography. My research question was to research how women were after getting an abortion, which ultimately helped me land on my thesis. The preconceptions and view of abortions varied greatly over time. In this section, I'll be going through each of my quotes. My first primary quote, "But to all my knowledge had abortions if they chanced to fall ill when with child," reveals the world of disease that was highly fatal. It's interesting to compare this quote to current times. Knowing that the disease they are likely talking about could be compared to a small cold or sinus infection in today's world is pretty interesting to look at the progress. But with COVID, the ancient world is seeming to become a mirror of the modern one. As for the second quote, "For us, once homicide has been forgiven, it is forbidden to kill the embryo in the uterus. Where there is blood, it flows in man. It is not lawful to destroy it." I'm still somewhat confused by the true meaning of this quote. There are so many questions that are raised each time I read it. So maybe putting it into simpler words will make it make more sense. For us, once murder has been forgiven, it is banned to kill the unborn offspring. Where there is blood, it is not banned to destroy it. Perhaps this is a quote of condoning abortions, saying that abortions are only allowed when the mother cannot bear the child. When abortions are done because the mother can live without it, then abortions are seen as murder. My first secondary source is investigating the treatment of women after they had birth. Postpartum, women were to stay at home for around the length of 30 days, and was often done for the value of purity. My second quote, "Artificial abortion of the fetus," might have come under the same heading as miscarriage, but the terminology of the sacred laws concerning abortions is neutral. Is about the view of an abortion from a Greek religious figure. While it might have been considered the death of an unborn child, it does, however, say that Greek religious figures had an impartial view on abortion. Some keywords that were involved were abortion, which in modern day is an intentional surgery to end pregnancy. A fetus is a mammal's offspring in the early developmental phase that comes after the embryo stage. A miscarriage is a non-deliberate end to pregnancy, and confinement is the act of keeping a mother at home for 30 days for sake of purity. The biggest lesson I learned while completing this project, and very important for anyone who's trying to do a historical research project, is to not come in with a selective mind of what is morally right or wrong. Since abortion is a very controversial subject today, And since I didn't agree with all the things I read, I failed to see the message of the text till my head had cleared. Books will say different things, and while it's confusing, it's important to look at why there are such a variety of answers, not just one that is so-called right or wrong in your head. I didn't even put together that the writing of abortion views span many years, and many different political, religious, and social opinions are similar if they are closer in relative time. Remember that history happened, and it cannot always be subjective. You have to remember that history shows a constantly evolving world, and whether or not you agree with the decisions of ancient times should not allow you to ignore the past.